Morning. Now, today's Off the Couch workout goes live on the Off the Ball channels at 1 o'clock. It's brought to you in association with Joint Ace. Joint Ace is packed with trace minerals, vitamins and nutrients to support a fit and healthy lifestyle at any age. Check out jointace.com for more. Oliver Dingley is with us to talk to us about what he's going to do for us today. Oliver, how are you getting on?
Hey, good morning. How's it going? I'm grand, thank you.
The last time you were in here was one of the last days before we were all told to work from home, and the four of us sat here along this tiny little studio, and in retrospect we're looking back at the photographs sometimes going, we were all very close to each other, really, weren't we?
Very, very true. It's kind of been fairly surreal how everything's changed so fast as well, especially in the sporting world. But it's something that I'd say that I think we all expected at the time.
100%, and we seem to have got used to it, I think. Now, how well we're doing as a country is up for debate. How are you actually maintaining some level of elite fitness when, I don't know if you've access to all the training facilities that you would have had before lockdown?
So for me, I actually found it quite hard to get going in the first place. Kind of getting myself out of bed kind of before lunchtime, trying to have breakfast when I should be having lunch, and so I've actually found it quite hard, but getting back on the wagon and doing a bit of exercise has actually really helped me. And kind of trying to be keeping a nice balance, kind of trying to cover everything. I've been lucky enough to get a bit of equipment from the Institute of Sport, so I'm able to carry on some of my diving practices, just everything that's outside of a pool. I'm kind of getting withdrawal symptoms now from the water, which is... It felt like a fairly long time since I last managed to dip my toes in the water and do a dive into the pool.
When you were here, we were talking about when the Olympics were eventually going to be postponed and the likelihood that it was going to happen. When it did happen, what was that experience actually like? Was there a period of mourning for this year and for what you've lost, or were you actually like, right, great, I'm delighted that kind of plaster has been ripped off?
I think relief, actually, a bit of clarity was really helpful. And cause I was actually going for my qualifying event, I think maybe 3 weeks afterwards. So to know that the hardest thing actually was kind of going from full blast to kind of relatively doing absolutely nothing. And that was a bit of a shock to the system. But I've just really been keeping myself busy, and I think that's helped. And it's helped me kind of reset, revalue my goals, and it's given me a whole year to actually get better as well.
So you're not thinking of this as like, oh, it's a sign I'm going to retire or any of that kind of stuff? You're like full bore for next year?
Oh, yeah. No plans of retiring yet. I'm all guns blazing.
And one of the things that you're doing to keep your mind active is a video for us for Off the Couch. So today I think we're looking at the glutes. Got to say, I didn't know that much about activating glutes before this whole lockdown. This is definitely a new thing in terms of my life, but it turns out squats and activating your glutes are quite important if you want to do any kind of activity.
It sure is, and especially at a time where we all just sat down for most of the time. It's actually quite good to start activating those muscles. And believe you and me, I've been sat down a fair amount of time. So it's nice to get up, get going. But the glutes is the one area where you feel a good bit of burn as well. I think when people go to the gym, that they tend to focus on the abs, the arms, and the glutes generally get missed. They're good for posture, they're good for athletic performance, and they're good for explosiveness as well. So if you do any sport, the glutes are really essential.
How are your glutes, Owen?
Sensational. Thanks. If you want any advice on how to activate that glute, then you know where to find me.
For those of us who didn't really know that much about it's your ass. That's what we're talking about here, really.
Essentially, yeah.
And why is it so important, Ollie?
But like I said earlier, it's great for posture. It's good for explosiveness, and really just it's good stability for your whole body in general. Having good glutes helps your hamstrings, helps your knees. So if you do a bit of running, having good glutes will actually really help your knees kind of recovery. So really, they're actually quite beneficial, and they're a good foundation.
Obviously, hugely important in your sport, I suspect.
Oh yes, you've got to really ping out of that diving board. So it's kind of we have to jump as high as we can. So the glutes are kind of a daily focus where we just work on them. They really just help us make us explosive, and we really have to try and push some good heights, because the way diving's going at the moment, kind of the boundaries are being pushed. So you've got to be on top of the game as well to be able to jump really high to really just throw and hold on for your life for those extra somersaults.
So I stupidly would have assumed that a lot of your spring kind of comes from your knees, but where does your spring come from when you're diving?
Really, it's actually all over, even in the arms, because the way we do an arm swing to propel ourselves, you're literally using the whole body, and you're basically doing it off this thin plank of metal, which really can be quite intimidating. But I mean, it's the way you use it, your rhythm out of a board. You've got to have really good board timing to start with, and then really that strength takes over. And anything from flexibility helps. So it's really those just fine margins of just being able to get out of a diving board, getting high out of a diving board, and the glutes are really essential there.
And where do you feel most stressed? Like, is it your ankles? Is it your knees? Is it your hips? Where, as a diver, when after a dive, are you, oh, my ankle's sore? Like, what is the soreness? Where does it come from, and what bits are you?
The stress really all depends on how your takeoff is, where you land on the end of the diving board. Sometimes it's quite mental because you think, oh God, I've got to really hold on here for my life. Other times, I do the springboard events, so the knees tend to get a bit of a hit because you really have to time the board, which really just takes years. And I've been diving for 20 years now, and I have many days where they just don't go. It doesn't happen, and you really feel it kind of ricochet through the body as you hit that diving board. Now I do a springboard event, which is relatively speaking, quite soft when you hit the water. Whereas the 10 meter, you're traveling at 50 kilometers an hour when you hit the water. So the impact is totally different. But you can feel it either way.
Yeah, I can see how your head might hurt if you don't land in the right spot.
Oh yes, yeah. Concussion is one of my biggest fears.
Okay, I didn't actually think of that at all. So it is legitimately a proper fear, yeah?
Oh, definitely. I've had some takeoffs where I take off where I just know I shouldn't have, but I'm in that frame of mind where I go for it anyway. And also in competition, you've really got to go off any takeoff you get. So sometimes you run out of space pretty fast. And I've had my fair share of whacks on the water, especially on the forehead, the top of it. Going right across the top of the head is always a painful one, but I'm not really selling diving very well here. Really, it is a good, fun sport, I promise you. I think you've experienced it before as well.
We've seen people do it. I can't wait to get back out there and do all those things again that you're like, oh, I should have done this a little bit more. Certainly that is on our list of stuff. And in terms of keeping your mental side strong and your focus on all this stuff, have you had any lessons along the way that you think the rest of us mere mortals should be paying attention to? How have you done it?
Well, I mean, really, I always try and take it one day at a time. I always find in a sport like diving where every kind of small detail helps. If you make one mistake, then that's the competition gone. So I always try and take it one dive at a time. And I guess from a sporting perspective, for anyone out there who is worried about this time, everyone's in the same boat. A psychologist once told me that everyone's dealt a pack of cards. Some of those cards are the same cards. Some of you have your own different cards. You might be carrying an injury, but it's how you use those cards and adapt to the situation. And I think this is a period where everyone is really just adapting. And it's a time where we can all reflect as well on how we can also make ourselves better, because in the grand scale of things, sport pales into insignificance compared to what some people are going through at the moment. And but this really is a period where you can better yourself and just use those cards to your advantage.
When you say you've been, or it is possible for people to use this time to get better, what areas have you improved on over the last couple of weeks?
Really, actually try to do my own mental health, because I do sometimes find it that I get into a frame of mind where I find it just hard to get going. And I think a lot of people can relate with that, especially the way the days are going, the long days. Everything's felt like it's just one long day at the moment. I'm just taking naps in the evening. And then it's the next day it is going again. I haven't really been out too much, so it's nice recently to get going, doing a bit more exercise. College is certainly keeping me busy. I have my podcast as well. So there's lots of different things there I'm trying to keep focused on. And also try and keep that balance between not thinking too much about sport, other areas where I can actually, I'm a terrible cook, so I'm trying to actually get a bit better at cooking. So far isn't working, but I'm still trying to persist. But there's little things where I could just try and really create a good balance and just keep on top of making a schedule each day.
Do you have a trigger or something that you can turn to when you're having a tough day? Like I'm sure it's something that you've been learning because you've always had the pool to go to, or you've had the diving board to go to over recent years. Have you picked up anything where when you realize you're in a mind space that isn't the best, that you can do or you can think about and that will immediately have a positive impact on you?
I think it's all about just being kind to yourself, not being too harsh on yourself. Because, I mean, in a sport like diving where you're looking for perfection, I find it especially going into, say, my college work, but I'm always kind of working myself too hard, trying to look for that extra bit where it isn't going to happen sometimes. So you've got to really just be kind to yourself and just reset and use that motivation for the next day to get going.
In terms of what the plans are for next year, have provisional dates been put in for qualifying for the Olympics and all that kind of stuff? Do you at least have targets to aim for?
No qualifying yet, but we do know when the World Championships are, which are also in Japan, which I think they're in May time. It was actually announced this week. And so they might double that up as a qualifying event. So usually in diving, you have the World Cup, which is in the Olympic venue, and it's generally a few months before the Olympics. And every single diver goes around the world. There's about 70 of the best divers around the world, and only 18 get guaranteed a spot at the Olympics. So it's really, really cutthroat. So I reckon they'll probably double up on the World Championships and maybe get rid of a World Cup. I would assume anyway, and that will be my route to qualifying for the Olympics.
And is that a good thing in some ways, in that like you do actually know that more than likely is going to be the case next year, and you know, whenever you need to do your downtime, your periodization, you can at least begin to plan for that?
I think so. It's always key to get clarity as early on as possible. The other good thing is kind of it gives me structure now as well, where I can then build up. I can plan a month at a time, days at a time. Kind of start to build a sequence where I can really start to focus on certain things, get my body back into shape, get those glutes firing again, and everywhere else in the body as well, and mentally as well. It's a real big help.
Well, listen, great stuff, Ollie. Glad to see you keeping so well, and I think everybody out there is going to activate the hell out of their glutes today when this goes live at 1 o'clock.
Well, good luck. You're going to feel it, but good luck.
Thanks a million. That's Olympic diver Oliver Dingley, who is, of course, today's Off the Couch, and it goes live on all our off the ball channels at 1 o'clock, brought to you in association with Joint Ace. Joint Ace is packed with trace minerals, vitamins and nutrients to support a fit and healthy lifestyle at any age. Check out jointace.com for more details. It is, what time? 9:05 this morning here. Thanks very much for joining us so far this morning on OTB AM, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. Up next, we're getting into Off the Bull. We're reviewing episodes 5 and 6 of The Last Dance with Owen Ronan, Kieran Donaghy and Jarlath Regan. If you missed anything in the show today, you can catch it back on our YouTube channel or through our podcasts. We've got over 40 different podcasts released every week on the OTB Podcast Network. Sunday Paper Review with Colin Keys and Shane Keegan. Our Jim Beglin Legends interview. Our Saturday Snooker panel with Ken Doherty and Dennis Taylor, reliving the magic of Taylor's final victory, which was replayed over the course of the weekend on BBC. The latest episode of Off the Brawl with Andy Lee, plus the 1986 World Cup revisited. And that's just from the weekend. That's just all that free content is available in your earballs on the OTB Podcast Network. You'll find that and much more. Subscribe to the OTB AM podcast stream wherever you get yours. We timestamp every 2-hour show into bits so you can scroll through it to whatever you want. We're back with Off the Ball next.
OTB AM.